Hi, friends. Welcome to our third Monday here in August 2022. Actually, I had a moment this week where I was like, what year is it? So I'm saying that for myself. If you know where you are, I'm very proud of you. Um, we're going to do a few different things today. We'll talk in the first half as usual. If you want to take notes and journal on the questions I'm going to ask, please do. I'm going to leave some time for that. But if journaling isn't for you, feel free to stand up and pace your room, pull out your knitting project, like whatever helps you focus while still staying in this container. Um, there's no right way to think about things and process, so do whatever works for you. But if you like, grab pen and paper and use that. So I need to find my stuff here. Give me one sec and we'll get going. Oops. Okay. All right. Can you see everything okay? Thumbs up.
The page, the first page. Is that where we're supposed to be? Make
Yeah.
space for pleasure. Okay,
Yep.
got it.
Sweet. Just saying, let me get on my windows. I don't know why this is harder than it usually is today, but it's kind of how I feel about things. Okay, there, now I get it. So I wanted to talk about pleasure again. We talked about it earlier this summer during Leo season. We talked about connecting with our inner children and seeing how they want to play, finding pleasure in playfulness. And it's something that's kind of stuck with me all summer. I'm not ready to give it up for back to school. I'm not ready to switch for fall because it's been such an interesting journey. And the thing that kept coming up was I was feeling bad. I was feeling guilty about having fun. I would like reprimand myself and really weigh things when there were these activities that I wanted to go to. There are people I enjoyed spending time with, new people, celebrating outside activities. Like it was really fulfilling and lovely events. And I was still guilting myself about going to a birthday party on a Wednesday night or going to taco night Tuesday. And when I thought about it longer, I was like, why am I feeling guilty? Like there's no rhyme or reason. My house is clean, my bills are paid, I'm still getting all my work done. Like there's no reason for me to feel guilty about accepting these opportunities, spending time with lovely people, celebrating all the Leo birthdays, being outside in nature. Like there's no reason. So what it kind of came down to was realizing that I still have that inner dialogue that wasn't mine. It's not stuff that I believe to be true. So the other reminder that happened is that pleasure is essential to our experience. Like, why are we here in these human bodies if it's not to experience pleasure? Like, we are physically built to experience pleasure through all of our senses. You know, not every animal on this planet has the ability to experience things like we do. So why would I limit myself in this body, in this experience, to not enjoy the experience, right? And also through my reading, found out that, you know, pleasure is essential scientifically speaking. Like it does help us function and it's incredibly important. So That's why I wanted to stick with it for a little longer. And in the voice of Virgo season, how it kind of ties into our upcoming Virgo season is that the shadow side of Virgo can be really critical. It can be really self-critical. The light side is organized, systematic, detail oriented, but the shadow side can be critical, condescending, rigid. So I think there's still more room to have pleasure, even though summer is ending. It shouldn't be a seasonal thing. So we're continuing on the theme of pleasure. And I found this quote from Rob Bresney, who's one of my favorite every week astrologers. He does free will astrology, and we used to read it in the back of the weekly paper that came out in San Diego. We'd read it every Tuesday when we started the week in the theater. And he has brilliant, beautiful, poetic astrology as well as quotes. So assume that your drive to experience pleasure isn't a barrier to your spiritual growth, but is in fact essential to it. Proceed on the hypothesis that cultivating joy can make you a more ethical and compassionate person. Imagine that feeling good has something important to teach you every day. And I love this because pleasure is not separate from our growth. Like, we can't be digging in the trenches every single day. The reason we're digging in the trenches is so that we can experience pleasure and a more easeful life, right? So we'll take a couple minutes and reflect on these two questions. I'll let you know halfway through so you can switch, but think about what brings you pleasure. What feels good? What is pleasurable? Don't overanalyze, just bullet points or write a paragraph or pace around your room and think of a few things that bring you pleasure. And then we'll think about what prevents you from experiencing pleasure. What comes up in your mind that is preventative? I should do this. I don't have time. Like, what are those stories? So I'll give you a few minutes, start and think, what brings you pleasure? And what prevents you from experiencing pleasure? All right. Take a moment to wrap up what your thoughts are on those two subjects. Did anyone else write down, for what prevents you from experiencing pleasure? Did anyone else write down time? I think this is a common one. I don't have the time to go on a hike in the mountains. I don't have time to go jump in a freezing cold spring lake river. I don't have time for this or that. It's that sentence right there. That's what we're going to explore within our space today. So, what do mindfulness and pleasure have to do with each other? When we're mindful, we may hear the stories that stop our pleasure or that prevent us from pleasure. And the truth is that we are not our stories. We're not the conditioning. We're not our cultural influences, our families of origin influences. We are the observer of those thoughts. Michael A. Singer, who wrote The Untethered Soul, excellent book if you have not read it, says there's nothing more important to true growth than realizing that you are not the voice of the mind. You are the one who hears it. We are the observer of those thoughts that come in and say, I don't have time, I don't have the energy. And Michael A. Singer refers to it as the inner roommate. And this is a widely used concept, that we're the observer of our thoughts. Eckhart Tolle refers to that voice as the ego. And the moment you become aware of the ego in you, it is strictly speaking no longer the ego, but just an old conditioned mind pattern. Ego implies unawareness. Awareness and ego cannot coexist. So his premise is that as soon as we step back and realize we are the observer of our thoughts, that we have broken the pattern right there and then, which is amazing. So check, done. We've already done it. We've identified it, like here together right this second. In the book Come As You Are, Emily Nagoski, PhD, talks about our impatient little monitor. And it's not how you feel, it's how you feel about how you feel. And again, that's us, that's our observer of our feelings, the observer of our thoughts. So once we separate ourselves from our thoughts, we can more objectively see the stories that come up. We can more objectively see what barriers come up, what stories come up that block us from pleasure, from moving forward, from emotional growth. Once we can hear those stories and see those stories, then we can decide what we want to listen to and what we don't want to listen to, which is an amazing, amazing superpower. And the stories that come up may not always be pleasant. So Lisa Renee Hall in her anti-racism work calls it the inner oppressor. I'm that part of you that bullies, guilts, and tempts you into submitting and conforming to the dominant culture. And a lot of the work she does is around how our inner voice contributes to external oppression for ourselves and for others. It's really beautiful. And on the silly end of things, in the cartoon Big Mouth on Netflix, there's the shame wizard. You can see in the cartoon, the girl says, this whole thing is my fault. And the shame wizard says, oh, yes, yes, it is. And these are examples of how our inner voice doesn't always serve us. You know, there's space and time for shame, and the cartoon actually explores it very beautifully. But most of the time, we overshame ourselves into inaction. We overshame ourselves into irrational reactions. So what happens if we're hearing this voice and we can just kind of drop the judgment? If we can, instead of calling it good or bad or that my thoughts are bad, my thoughts don't serve me. What if we can just observe it without judgment? You know, are we able to be the kind witness? Are we able to be the gentle observer of our thoughts without judging them? So I had a dream the other night, and this is what I came up with. Think it, think it, fuck it. So in practice, when these thoughts come up, you think it. The big step and the big challenge is starting to notice that you had a thought and you say, oh, I don't have enough time. That's a thought. Let me step back and chew on it a little bit. Like, is this thought mine? Do I actually believe that I don't have time? Do I believe that life is hard? Do I believe that I'm too fat to do this? Do I believe that I'm too old to do that? You know, is this thought mine or not? And then we think it. We say, you know, thank you for trying to protect me, but fuck it. I don't believe that. I don't believe that I don't have time. I don't believe that I'm too old to do that. I don't believe that I can't have fun and work and live my life, you know? So that may be a very condensed version, but think it, think it, fuck it. Like, I'm sticking with it. So to apply this to pleasure, we want to practice non-judgment about our own pleasure as well as other people's. Like, don't yuck somebody else's yum is one of my friends' favorite saying. You don't know what is yummy to them, and there's no reason to yuck it. If someone likes sucking on stinky toes and that brings them pleasure, fine. You know, there's no reason for me to yuck their yum. But what happens if we can turn that in on ourselves, you know? Apply that non-judgment to our own pleasure. I like the smell of fresh, clean sheets just as much as I like the taste of stinky blue cheese, you know? And there's, just because my brother doesn't like stinky blue cheese doesn't mean that I have to not, you know? He may think it's yucky, that's fine, great, more for me. But I don't want anyone else's judgment on what brings me pleasure. So it's releasing those outside opinions, conditioning, stories, etc., about our pleasure also. You know, and part of pleasure is, according to Brene Brown, is that pleasure and joy are one of the scariest emotions to experience, because what happens when it goes away? We contract at the thought of not having joy and pleasure in the future, instead of being able to stay in the moment and experience pleasure where we are right now. Instead of enjoying the juiciest drippy peach and taking every yummy mouthful and really tasting summer with every bite, we're more concerned about how am I going to wipe my hands in 3 minutes when I'm done with this peach, you know? So mindfulness brings us back to just enjoying the peach while we're enjoying the peach. And then when it's time to wash our sticky hands, we'll figure that out at that point, right? And not everyone cares about sticky hands as much as I do, but that again is how mindfulness ties in to our pleasure. So start with your own. I shouldn't do this. I don't really have time to watch a comedy for 30 minutes before I go to bed. I shouldn't. When you hear, especially that shouldn't word, pause. Says who? Who says you shouldn't? Who says I shouldn't go out on a school night? You know, says who? Who says? Stop, think it, fuck it. So to make space for pleasure, I have kind of 3 prescriptions. Number 1 is being in your body. As we've talked about before, when you're in the constant fight or flight mode, you're unable to do anything else. Your body freezes against receiving pleasure. So if you're always amped up and you're always stressed out, it's going to be really hard to experience pleasure. So part of the very first thing to do is getting yourself back to that relaxed stasis as often as possible, daily, multiple times a day, at least weekly, please. But we need to be in our body in order to experience pleasure. We experience pleasure through our senses in some way, shape, or form. It's not just a mental experience. It's through taste and touch and smell and sound and sight. So we'll practice some of this later together, but one way we can get back to that relaxed state, we have a couple tricks that we talked about back in Taurus season. Putting your legs up against the wall and letting your body settle, doing the wave breathing, which is the deep belly inhale, the deep chest inhale, and then a big exhale. We can do the alternate nostril breathing, which we're going to practice together today. Any of those techniques that help you calm your nervous system and get back to stasis are going to be really helpful in experiencing pleasure. Another grounding technique is this 5-4-3-2-1 technique. And we talked about it, but we didn't do it. That's my bad, but we're going to do it now. This also helps calm your senses. It's recommended a lot for panic and anxiety attacks, but it's also great to reconnect with your surroundings and be in your body. So you want to observe and name. And this is really important. When we name things, it gives our mind peace. When we're able to put words to a feeling or to an object, it calms our very reptilian human brain. So we observe and name 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch or feel, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, 1 thing you can taste. And then noticing, how do you feel after doing that? We can talk about other grounding techniques as well. Like one of my favorites is walking in grass or dirt. It actually releases negative ions from your body into the ground, and it's amazing. And just feeling that connection between your body and the earth is incredibly grounding. You will also find me hugging trees in the park. That's right. I will curl up and get my face in the bark and touch the bark with my fingers and smell really deeply on the trunk of the tree and enjoy it. Like the background of this picture was me like playing with the little mushrooms that I found of the tree roots the other day. But notice that the thing those all have in common is you're engaging with your senses, touching the trees, feeling the earth, smelling nature. Like those all connect you back to your body and get you out of your head a little bit. Our second recommendation to make space for pleasure is to identify that inner voice. Let's talk about our ego and our inner roommate. If we can observe our thoughts more objectively, be the compassionate witness, be non-judgmental, be more detached from the thoughts, we're able to we're able to realize if those thoughts are here to help us or kind of get in our way. So what's here to help and what's here to hinder? So through mindfulness, we can practice recognizing that inner voice. And it's much easier to do when you're still, but the goal is through the practice of peaceful, slow, mindful practices is to then be able to identify that thought, those thoughts, that voice during the busier times of your day, during the more stressful times. So if you found sitting and meditating is not for you, or breathing is not for you, definitely check out Dan Harris. He has an entire book and podcast of meditation for fidgety skeptics and has a lot of other techniques that he talks about other than just sitting there. You can do a walking meditation, anything that swimming, running, anything that gets you into a flow state, which is basically like distracting your physical body so you can just hear your mind. Anything that gets you into that flow state can be a meditative practice. It's all about what's going on in your head, and that's where you'll turn your attention once your body is busy doing other things. Sometimes, like I found actually having absolute silence wasn't helpful for me because every little sound would pique my interest to be like, what's that? What's that? What's that? So I found like my lo-fi playlists are actually really helpful. I'm not into like the flutes and waterfalls, but I have other music with no words, and it's fairly repetitive and calming, and it blocks out the rest of the world, but I can also tune it out at the same time. The other thing we'll practice together today is some mindful meditation techniques where when we see the thoughts, we notice the thought and let it float away. Some people like to wrap their thought in a bubble. And I always think of like these bubbles, like the bubbles you blow, and let it float away. You're like, oh, I need to remember to call Bob tonight. Nope, we're going to put that in a bubble, let call Bob float away. We can come back to it later. You can put your thoughts in a book and put it on a shelf, and you're welcome to pick it up later. You can think of thoughts as passing cars. And you're just sitting there observing them, just watch them go by. You're not mad at the red truck. You don't really care about the blue sedan. Just let them pass by. You're sitting there just watching the traffic. And maybe one of my favorites is the thoughts in a basket, where you imagine yourself sitting on the edge of a river and you can see the river bend off in the distance, and it curves around and goes out of sight. Whenever you have a thought, you put it in a basket, put the basket on the water, and let it float away. Any of these techniques help recognize those thoughts and just let them be. There's no judgment. It can be in a bubble, basket, just let it go for now. And the goal is not to create a silent mind. The goal is not to not have thoughts. The goal is to keep recognizing when you have them and let them go. That's the practice. It's not a silent mind. So there's some relief in that. And then lastly, what identifying our inner voice and practicing mindfulness does is it helps us accept what is. In dialectical behavioral therapy, radical acceptance means it's recognizing your emotions or your physical distress and just practicing acceptance, not trying to change it, not getting mad at the circumstances, not saying why me, just accepting this is what is right now. My foot hurts. Okay, my foot hurts. No judgment. Accepting. Okay, my foot hurts. It probably won't be forever. Other people's feet have hurt before. Like, my foot hurts. Period. We're definitely going to dive more into acceptance in the deep dive into self-compassion, because that's a huge component of that as well. But most, like Buddhism and yoga, a lot of their theories are based on, if we accept what is, there's nothing to be upset about. It's when we're reacting against what is that we create disease for ourselves. So part of mindfulness and identifying that inner voice is just accepting what is with non-judgment. And lastly, mindfulness will help us create space to revel in the daily deliciousness of life. Just like that ripe peach, there's never going to be a peach that tastes like exactly like that peach right then and there, you know? It just is right now. And I love this snapshot because it shows just that each single moment we can enjoy pleasure without thinking about the future or thinking about the past. When we stay in the present, we're really able to delight in the little things. So to practice that, we try and slow down. Take a deep breath before doing everything. Definitely shelf the multitasking as much as possible. I am also a terrible I'm really bad at doing other things while I eat. I will do anything except for just eat. I will read a book. I will watch TV. I will play on my phone. I will do anything except for like just put the fork in my mouth, you know. But when I stop and I'm just taking bite by bite and like enjoying it and chewing and tasting everything, I find I eat less. I find I'm more full. I find I enjoyed my meal more. I'm not hungry later because I'm like, oh no, I did eat. I enjoyed it. Remember? So just trying to pay attention to the now without being in the future. So for example, during dinner, putting the book and the TV and the phone away and not thinking about doing the dishes, just eating, not thinking about everything before and after, just eating. That's it. And I know that that could be a hard habit. These can be hard habits to break for sure. So I want to encourage you to try being present and try being mindful in some of your daily routine activities. For example, in the shower, what happens if you just like feel the soap on your skin? What happens if you feel the texture of the washcloth or your poofy thing? You know, just slowing down and actually paying attention to that versus, you know, thinking about what you're going to wear, who you need to call, whatever the next step. Just staying in the shower and just enjoying the shower activities. Same with the daily routine of having coffee or tea. Again, this is another thing. I'll be drinking my tea and I'm on the stupid phone already. You know, what happens if you just taste each and every sip? Or even half a cup, like start with half a cup. Enjoy that first sip. Smell the roasted beans. Remember the time you were at the mountain cabin, but just experience that cup of coffee right then and right there, like it's never happened before and like it will never happen again. Just smell and breathe and be present. And part of this is a good reminder to use our childlike curiosity, you know, being awed by the little things like, oh, look at all the bubbles my loofah made today. That's fun. Look what happens when I swirl my creamer in and while I'm stirring my coffee, like that makes a cute swirl. You know, just trying to find these moments of pleasure and delight versus rushing through everything. When we stay present, we can witness the little moments and be fully in them as they happen. I'm gonna stop sharing. Do we have any questions before we practice some things together? All right. We will start with the alternate nostril breathing. And if you have glasses, you can keep them on or off. That's up to you. But we take our first two fingers, and I like to rest them around the third eye. And then put your thumb on one nostril and your ring finger on the other. Don't totally close it off. Basically, what we're going to do is release our thumb and inhale through that nostril. Once you're fully in, close that nostril off, release the other side to exhale out of that nostril. In your left side, switch out your right side. Breathe in your right side, switch out your left side. Keep going. In your left, out your right. In your right, out your left. In your left, out your right. Keep going at a pace that makes sense for you. If it's comfortable to close your eyes, close your eyes. Try and extend the breaths, making them a little longer. Feel your body calming down, relaxing with the breath. Feel your fingers on your third eye, gently resting there. We'll do a few more. I'm going to do a final exhale on your right nostril. Go ahead and release your hand and breathe normally. Keep your eyes closed. Feel if you can relax your shoulders a little bit. Loosen your jaw. Relax your face. And when you're ready, open your eyes again. That's one of my favorites. Alternate nostril breathing. And next we'll try a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So wherever you are, look around and observe and name 5 things that you can see. Four things that you can touch or feel. And that may be like the air blowing on your skin. It may be the clothes sitting on your body. Maybe you touch the clothes. And 3 things you can hear. Listen close and listen far away. Two things you can smell. And 1 thing you can taste. Water counts. Excellent. So now that we're hopefully in a more relaxed state, I'll walk you through some of the mindfulness exercises that I find helpful, and they'll get progressively longer. If there's a technique that you don't resonate with, you can take over the narrative in your head and do whatever you want. Again, the goal is not a silent mind, but it's to not get caught up in those thoughts when they enter, to just hear them and say, that's a thought, and let it go. The visualizations are helpful to trap that thought and let it go. But if you don't find that necessary, you don't need to do that. So again, the goal is not a silent mind. It's just to keep recognizing the thoughts. So get in a comfy spot. Close your eyes if that feels good to you. I'm going to start with a 10 count breath. So every time you inhale, that's 1. And exhale is 2. Inhale is 3. Exhale is 4. Keep counting and see if you can make it to 10. If you get caught up, just start over at 1 again. And now imagine you're sitting on the side of a busy road. You're in a comfy chair and you're nice and safe where you are. And anytime a thought comes up, it looks like there's a car passing your vision on this busy road. You just put that thought in the back of the truck or in the back of the car and let it drive off. Just watch the thoughts come and go. You don't need to chase after them. You don't need to attach to them. If you get distracted, just come back to your comfy chair on the side of the road, watching the cars pass by. No judgment, no attachment. The thoughts can come and go. You don't need to chase them or explore them. And come back to your chair by the side of the road. We're going to pick it up and we're going to walk to the other side of the hill where there's a beautiful lake stream, a river that's flowing by. You can place your comfy chair by the side of the river. You watch the river flow from one side to the other until it's completely out of sight. Maybe you hear the sounds of the rushing water over the rocks. Maybe you can smell some yummy, fresh nature. Maybe you see fish or a moose drinking out of the stream. Imagine your river however you like it. And sit there and enjoy your river. And if thoughts come, you can put them in a basket, set the basket on the water, and watch it float downriver and out of sight. The thoughts are welcome to come. You don't need to judge them. You don't need to attach to them. Just place them in the basket and let them go. And if your mind wanders, come back to your comfy seat by the side of the river and put any thought in a basket. Set the basket on the water and let it float downriver and out of sight. And you're welcome to stay in your comfy chair by the river, putting your thoughts in a basket and letting them drift away. Or you can imagine your thoughts getting trapped in a bubble, letting it float away off into the sky and out of sight. Whatever kind of bubble you like. When the thoughts come, we don't judge them. We just put them in a bubble and let them drift off into the sky until you can't see them anymore. And if your mind has wandered, come back to your breath. And anytime a thought comes up, just put it in a bubble and let it float away. We're not judging any thoughts that come. We're not judging ourselves for having the thoughts. Any thoughts that come just get put in a bubble and they float away until we can't see them anymore. And if you're ready to come back, you can thank your bubbles, thank your comfy chair by the river, thank your comfy chair by the highway. Thank yourself for taking the time to witness your thoughts, to distinguish that you're the observer of the thoughts, you are not the thoughts. Thank those thoughts for what they're trying to tell you. And remember that you're in charge. You don't have to attach to them. That you're the gentle observer. You're the kind witness. You are the one who witnesses the thoughts. You are not the thoughts themselves. You are not the voice of the mind. You are the one who hears it. And if you're ready, you can wiggle your fingers and toes. Take a deep breath and slowly blink open your eyes if you're ready. If you're not, you can hang out in the mindfulness meditation as we end. But before we go, we're going to do a fun happiness breath if you want to join me. So stand up. You may have to take off your headphones or something if you have wires. My ear thing may pop out. Don't need a ton of space, but enough. You can put your arms out and that you can bend over forward. So we're gonna inhale our arms forward, inhale to the side, inhale straight up, and then big exhale, swoosh down. Exhale it as you try and touch the ground. If you can see that. So inhale, 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 exhale, swoosh down. Ready? Go as fast or slow as makes sense for your body. In, 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 exhale, down. In, in, exhale down. Inhale, in, exhale down. Arms out front, in, side, up, exhale down. 2 more. And when you're done, just come to standing, feel the energy in your body. See if you can feel a happy little swirl. See if you can make yourself smile a little bit, even if it feels fake. Sometimes with a smile, we gotta fake it. So our body's like, oh yeah, I could do that. Thank you so much, friends. Happy Monday. Hop to the website and check out the deep dive into inner compassion. I have the registration all ready to go. We're going to start the class. It's going to be 6 sessions, similar to what we've been doing, but it's going to be a deep dive focusing just on self-compassion, just on inner compassion. We're going to start the last week of August, the first week of September. The days are not set yet because I wanted to take into account what day works best for y'all. So within the registration, you're able to answer a Calendly survey that has some time and date options. Select a couple that are best for you if you want to attend live. If you don't like attending the live classes, that's fine too. We'll send out a recording the day after, and you'll be able to have the recording in a video recording as well as an audio recording if you prefer that. And if anyone needs it, I will be sending out a written transcript so you can read instead of listening or watching. So I want to make it really accessible to everybody. The registration form has all that, all those questions. So I know what you guys need to make the best class for you. And that first session, we'll talk about, like we did today, that journaling may not be for everyone. We'll talk about other ways that you can process information and do what most fits your pretty little brain. So, I know journaling isn't for everyone. I love it, but I also really like taking my walks. So that's always a good time to chew over something as well. So I want to make sure it's accessible to everybody. And that's at balancedroar.com. You can look at deep dive and inner compassion. There's a long article about why we even care about inner compassion and what science has to say about how it can help you live a more easeful life, achieve your goals better, like all the amazing benefits. So much of the research and self-development I've done, it all goes back to this concept. So it's an amazing building block, and I'm so excited to dive into it with y'all. And we'll be doing that soon. So balancedroar.com/register, and you can read more about the class on there. And I will send out links in the next newsletter that will come out this week. As always, holler if you have any questions. All right, thanks, friends. We are not having our community meeting on the first Monday because that's Labor Day, September 5th. But But if you all still want to have a community chat that week, let me know if like Tuesday or something would work. I'm flexible. I'm just respecting a 3-day weekend. I'm happy to hold space that Monday night too, honestly, because the weekend will be over on Monday. So let me know what y'all want to do. I'm happy to do whatever works for everyone. I'll be around. All right, bye, friends.